The Chiefs may have beaten the Dolphins, but I've got a gut feeling that treating a game in Germany like any other game would be a mistake.
I don't know, shit. That gut feeling, that just might be whatever you ate for lunch. From Wondery, I'm Shek Shazier.
And I'm Dave Dameshek. It was a tostada.
And this is Gridiron Gut Check.
Welcome to Gridiron Gut Check, which, as simple as it sounds, I'm speaking up for you, the fan, sharing the kinds of opinions and reactions we all have after spending the whole weekend watching football and doing very little else. But unlike most guys on the couch, I get to sit down with a 4-time Pro Bowler and Steelers legend Ryan Shazier to pass judgment on my snap judgments and hot takes. Number 50, are you ready to give my takes a gut check from a player's POV?
Hey, man, I'm always ready to go. Man, I love when people ask me questions, especially about the game of ball. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. And, man, let's get this going.
Game of ball it is. Let's get going. The Chiefs, as I say, beat the Dolphins 21-14, but the game was in Germany, so I'm not going to overreact to the result. These international games are wonky. This one-score win really proves nothing about the Chiefs or the Dolphins as far as I'm concerned. How say you?
I don't understand why people act like international games don't matter. First of all, when you play in a Super Bowl, that is on a neutral site. It's on a field that you're not normally used to. There's fans from all over the world that come to watch that game. So that's exactly how the games in Germany are, the games in London are, because I've seen people that I follow on social media that are actually, just football fans that were, posting videos at the game in Germany, and they don't live they live in the States. So that's one side of it. You have to play on a neutral site. And I think the Chiefs are more prepared to play on neutral sites than the Dolphins are. Secondly,
well, wait a second. That's maybe the point then. The Chiefs are conditioned veterans of big-time games where marketing is part of your free time or what should be your free time, especially when you're overseas, be it in the UK or Germany or down in Mexico City. Part of it is glad-handing, try to win new fans and all of that stuff. Isn't that a distraction for the average pro football player?
I wouldn't say it's a distraction because if you think about it, Tyreek Hill, he's probably doing so much public-facing stuff in Miami, Waddle, Tua, Jalen Ramsey. They have all the weapons over there to do all that public-facing on a regular basis in a city like Miami. Like they have all the stuff that you need to be a public-facing team. All the players, they're in a shiny city, it's always great weather. So they can't use that as an excuse because they went overseas and now you're entertaining people. Like they do that on a regular basis. I'm assuming when the Miami Dolphins win, sometimes you might see them at a club at Live. You don't get that in Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? So like that's not something that you normally get, but you do get that type of stuff with international games.
What about you've played in big time games, be it at Ohio State and with Pittsburgh come playoff time and high profile prime time games? Is that extra element of doing extra interviews and calls for, can you get me 4 tickets and all that? We always hear that stuff during Super Bowl weeks a lot. Is it in fact a distraction?
Most of the big time players, that stuff doesn't really matter. Like when you really think about all that other distractions, like you knew you came to play football. You knew that's something that you came to do. Every Friday, if you are a key player to the game plan, they're going to have you talk to the broadcast team anyway. Like every Friday, TJ Watt is talking to CBS, Fox, Amazon, or, Amazon's on Thursday. So Wednesday night or, Sunday night, he's talking to ESPN. So like you're talking and you're doing all these interviews already anyway. So just because you're in a different space, I can understand being in a different space, the time zone, that can throw you off because you're used to sleeping. Some guys, especially if you're Kansas City, they have a lot of 4:00 games. They sleep. They're probably still sleeping at 9:00 if you really think about it. So for those games, the time difference. But I think the biggest thing that really plays a part is the Dolphins had multiple opportunities to win this game. I understand they started off down 21-0 or 14-0 or 21-0. They started down 21-0. They came all the way back, and Tua had multiple times to win this game. And in college and in the NFL, we've seen multiple times where Tua has not showed up when he needed to show up in that big time game. We've seen him also do it like 1 or 2 times. He's won a national championship off of it. But we've also seen him in multiple big time games not be able to do it. That's why the Dolphins haven't beat a team with a winning record in over 400 days.
So you're circling the quarterback, the most important position, not just in football, but in any sport. They do have, as you mentioned, Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, and others who've been there. They have Vic Fangio tuning up that defense. He's been around big-time games. You think that there's an issue with Tua coming up in the biggest spots of the game, namely fourth quarter? You think that's a legitimate looming concern?
So I wouldn't put it all on Tua, because in those 400 games, Mike McDaniel has been the coach. So he's been the coach. Tua's been the quarterback. Obviously, Tua has been hurt last year. This year, he's been healthy. And every single time they played a team that's above 500, they have not beat them. So that's something that is up for question. To me, I always felt that fans put too much responsibility on the quarterback. I feel like wins and losses shouldn't just go on the quarterback. Because if you look at Dallas this last week, Dak Prescott did everything possibly he could to win that game, and they lost. So I don't always put wins
His
and
right
losses.
foot didn't. It did a little bit too much on that sideline.
Yeah, but, and he was trying to make a play, and sometimes you step out of bounds. But you can't blame that loss on Dak. That if they would have won, you could have blamed it on Dak. So to me, I think sometimes you put too much emphasis on quarterbacks, but I don't think that, but if anybody has to take the lead, it has to be McDaniels, and then right under him is going to be Tua.
Okay, my last bit of pushback on this is that those Dolphins 1 year ago beat the Bills down in Miami and then went up in bitter conditions to Buffalo when nobody gave them a chance, and Tua already had multiple back issues, wink, wink. He went up there and they had him on the ropes. It took a superhuman effort from Josh Allen in the last minute to steal that game from Buffalo. It's not as though it's completely foreign for Miami. I do agree, though, at least for their locker room, they have to show they can get over the hump against good teams in big spots. Now, a guy who has done that, and a team who he's dragged along with him, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who I'm going to tell you right now, get a load of this statement, and I mean it sincerely. I wouldn't jive you, Shazier. The Bengals are the best team in the AFC North. That's what all the cool kids are saying. I'm saying, I might even go so far as to say best team in the conference. Let's go AFC North, though. How say you?
First of all, I'm not paying the Bengals as the best team in the conference. They're the only team in our conference that has lost 3 games in a row.
Okay, skip conference. Focus on the matter at hand. The 4,
right,
the Iron 4 in that AFC North.
So the AFC North, they're the only team in our division that has lost 3 games in a row, right? So it shows you that if things don't go exactly how they need them, they would drop games. Obviously, Joe Burrow was not 100% healthy, but they would drop games. Secondly, the number 1 defense is the Cleveland Browns. The number 2 defense is the Baltimore Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, the way they're playing football right now, are the best team in the NFL. I understand that you have the Eagles who are 8-1, and you have the Jags who are playing well, and then you have the Chiefs who have 2 losses. But when you just watch football and just watch how the Ravens are playing in this offense that they have, Lamar's playing at an MVP caliber. He's playing at MVP caliber right now. And then also, I just think that their defense, with how many turnovers they're creating, how they're getting after the quarterback, I think the Ravens are the best team in our division. I think the Bengals are a really good team. And I'm going to be honest, like sometimes watching them, I'm like, man, why are they still, like, how are they winning these games? But they have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, if you really think about it, is the second best quarterback in the league. If you want to just be completely blood honest, raw about it, number 1 is Pat. He's number 2, and number 3 might be CJ Stroud, but we'll talk about that later. But the thing is, it's just Lamar Jackson is also up there to make that argument, and I think the Bengals are really good. I think that I don't know where they're going to finish in the division, but I don't think they're the best team in the division.
It may start as soon as this Sunday because the AFC North teams are all, I'm not saying completely even, but they're pretty closely stacked together in terms of talent and goals for January and beyond. And Browns and Ravens, one of those two teams is going to get a strike in the L column, and so it will go for the back half of this season. Cincy has a lot of big-time divisional games still to come. When the dust settles, I'm going with Joe Burrow because I'm with you. I think we talk about the quarterback league and we pay a dozen quarterbacks, 15 quarterbacks, as though they're the guy who can overcome all warts on the rest of the roster. In fact, by my estimation, there are 3 to 5 guys like that. Burrow is one of those guys. Lamar Jackson, thriving so far with Todd Monken. Like I say, I'm going with Joe Cool here. He's going to win the division. I do think what you say about the defenses all through that AFC North. I am surprised by how good Baltimore is playing on that side of the ball. I did not see that coming. I do think if you could ever get Pittsburgh, their big 3 defensive guys, Minka, Watt, and Hayward, all healthy and on the field at the same time with Joey Porter Jr. coming on a little bit, there is a chance for Tomlin's vision to really come to fruition down the back half of this season here. If Kenny Pickett takes care of the ball on one side, they can get a couple of splash plays over 60 minutes. That defense might be good enough to dominate and steal the ball from the other side, just enough that team stays relevant no matter how ugly everybody thinks it is in football America. Hey, news out of the Twitter sphere is that Bob Kraft is ready. This is a rumor. I don't know what's going on here, but these are the rumors that we find in social media and beyond. Bob Kraft might be ready to do the unthinkable. That is moving on from Bill Belichick. I've got a gut feeling that a certain embattled Michigan head coach himself, a little bit of trouble from some Spygate stuff. Ironic, right? Or maybe not. Maybe a perfect coincidence there. What about if that guy escapes the NCAA to take over as head curmudgeon in New England? Maybe we even get a Spygate 2 out of this new union. How say you?
It would be so crazy to see that Harbaugh leave Michigan, the team up north, then go to the Patriots. When you talk about two teams I do not like to watch play football, those are the two teams. And just to see him follow the footsteps of Bill Belichick, that also got in trouble for a scandal, a gay, a cheating, like that, if there was a script in the NFL, that'll be the script right there. Oh my gosh.
It's perfect. Packers went from Favre to Rodgers. That was 2 Hall of Fame level QBs. This is the same thing. Belichick to Harbaugh. It makes all the sense in the world, right?
The one thing that's really scary about Harbaugh, right? If he goes to Patriots, Harbaugh is a really good coach. So I understand that all this scandal and this and that, but he took this 49ers team to, was it the Super Bowl?
Yes.
He took him to the Super Bowl. So he's a really good coach. Obviously, his team was stacked when he took them to the Super Bowl, but that just lets you know what type of coach he is. His teams, college and NFL, are very physical teams. So that's what you need in NFL. Obviously, the NFL is more pass happy. They're spread more now, but he's a quarterback, so he'll help develop a quarterback, but then also make his team a very physical style team. I think he could be a very dangerous coach in the NFL if he gets suspended from Michigan or the Big Ten does something with him.
Well, based on the narrative, and in fact, if you look at his resume, you will see that it is true that he has had a knack of wearing out his welcome in a lot of places where he was succeeding. Maybe he chose to do it. Maybe the other side chose to do it. In fact, he's really exceeded expectation up there in Ann Arbor. Nobody thought he was going to be there as long as he has been. But you touch on something. Everywhere he's gone, he is one of those guys. I don't want to say every single guy he's worked with at quarterback, but he is one of those guys, for all the talk about who is and isn't a QB whisperer, he seems like the real deal in that regard. And remember, it took a certain amount of guts, as bad as I felt for Alex Smith, taking that Niners team to the NFC title game against the Giants, and Kyle Williams, the punt returner, you may recall, fumbled a couple of those punts. Otherwise, Alex Smith would have gone to the Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh, though, believed enough in Colin Kaepernick that he flipped that switch in the middle of the next season. I mean, that takes a certain amount of guts. Like I say, boy, the machine's humming, but I still think we can get a little bit more. That instinct is wise. And by the way, if you're talking about blending what he learned in college and working with those kids and what he's already done in the NFL, the beneficiary of that in New England or the Los Angeles Chargers or the Chicago Bears may well be Caleb Williams, Drake May, or pick your favorite quarterback, because it does look like the Patriots are somehow tracking to be get this, in the AFC right now, the toughest conference ever, the worst team in it is Belichick's Patriots. The big glass half full version of that, though, is that they may get a stud QB for 2024.
Yeah, it's crazy that they might end up getting one of the top quarterbacks or the top player in the draft. Like, that's
what
not
happens
what
when you stink.
That's what people in the NFL don't want. It's like, you don't want the Patriots to get the quarterback when there's actually a generational type of quarterback in the draft. Like, it's like, come on now. Like, we're tired of seeing the Patriots, and now they might get the opportunity of getting one of those guys. Hopefully the Bears or Arizona or the Giants figure that one out before they do.
Time for a quick break. Stay tuned. Up next, we're talking about C.J. Stroud a little bit more, then changing up the formation for a new game we're calling the nickel package. We're back with more topics from NFL action this week on Gridiron Gut Check. 2 weeks ago, brand new name starter for the rest of the season, Will Levis threw 4 touchdowns. This week, C.J. Stroud threw 5. Is it time to say that the Panthers royally screwed up by taking Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick? I think Carolina Panthers fans are starting to say yes more and more. How say you, Shazier?
See, this is the one thing that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to drafts and picking players. CJ is playing amazing right now. Will Levis played 2 games, so people still don't have a bunch of film on him. Bryce Young, when you really think about who you feel is the safest pick in the draft, you would probably have said Bryce Young beforehand. I said CJ Stroud, but you would probably have said Bryce Young, because how Bryce Young played in college, how he performed, how he communicates, his poise in the pocket. But you also got to understand that Bryce's team is not that good either. They have a lot of weapons. Like, he has Thielen, he has Miles Sanders. Their O-line is all right. They're not like amazing, but he's struggling over there. And I don't think that they made a mistake yet, because when you look back at it, which one would you rather be? Ben Roethlisberger, or would you rather be Dan Marino? You know, because at the end of the day, Dan Marino might be one of the greatest passers of all time, but he never won a ring. While Ben Roethlisberger, he's in the top 10, top 5 passing. He has 2 rings. You know, in what situation?
Let me ask that question a little bit better, if I might. Forgive me for the implied insult there. Roethlisberger won 2 Super Bowls, went to 3 statistically, and his style of play made him a little more iconic. Whose career would you rather have, Dan Marino's or Eli Manning's?
Yeah,
Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl rings, both of them against Tom Brady, as you know. His other years, he had some nice seasons, but straight up, I think you think you'd get much pushback. Marino, the better pro football quarterback. How say you on that one, philosophically?
Yeah. See, for me, as a team player type of guy, I will be cool with being Eli Manning, right? Because I want to win championships. I'm in the business of winning championships. Then also, Eli Manning, he's in New York, so like his name is going to just grow even more because he's in New York. But I'm in the business of winning championships. Dan Marino, he's in the Hall of Fame. Some people would say he has the greatest arm to ever touch the football. You know, people can say the same thing about CJ. And when you think about a franchise, which quarterback would you rather have? People say, I'd rather have Dan Marino, but you never get in the ring. Or you have Eli Manning and you're going to get 2. It just depends on what you think is best. And I think that's the type of situation. As a quick
tangent, I will make one assertion, and you don't have to respond to this because you were way too young. You weren't born when this was happening. I think Don Shula, the legend, kind of failed Dan Marino. Yeah, he's flipped the switch from run-based offense to leaning into what Marino did best, which was slinging it. But he really never built up that roster as well as he could have to help Marino out. Anyway, that's a quick little tangent. Back to what you were saying.
No, but it just depends on what you say, because if you're the Panthers and Bryce Young is Eli Manning, hey, people can say, hey, he's not CJ Stroud, but you won 2 championships, right? Or if you're the Texans and you get Dan Marino, you're gonna still say, hey, we made the right decision. You know, so you just didn't build a roster up to win a championship. So it's to me, I feel like this is a very sticky situation because think about it. Who would you rather have? Like, obviously, this is a dumb question. I'm not going to ask that question. Because I'm about to say, who would you rather have, Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow? It's like and that's kind of the situation it is. Joe Burrow is getting all these yards. He has all these weapons, but he still hasn't won a championship yet while Patrick Mahomes has won one. Everybody wants to take Patrick Mahomes. But that's how I don't think right now is the decision to say that Bryce Young is a bad pick. When you look at Josh Allen's first 2 years, people thought he was a bust. Now, he's on the cover of Madden. They're saying he's a true gunslinger. He's a Brett Favre type, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league right now. So I think one thing about our society, one thing about just our community of fans and analysts is that we jump on the bandwagon of saying somebody is sorry way too soon. Like, even when you think about Kenny, maybe Kenny might just need a change up on OC. Maybe he just need a new environment. Look at Geno Smith, So I just think that everybody's situation is a little bit different. And I think we need to at least give Bryce Young his whole contract to figure out what type of player he is.
Wow. Now you're giving him a lot more rope than I would. Whole contract is a completely different matter. I hear you. Half a season is not fair. I mean, yeah, of course that's not fair. And I like those hypotheticals to kind of illuminate what you're getting at. Situation obviously matters for these guys. And I was thinking about it watching the Eagles and Cowboys. Who would win this trade? Who would do better in 2023 if you went back to September and said, hey, Cowboys, you're sending Dak Prescott to Philadelphia for Jalen Hurts. Which quarterback is better? Which team is better in that situation? You can think about that for a later time, but it does kind of show you situation probably does have a great deal to do with the result here. All that being said, I hear you. Stroud is looking dynamite, and Bryce Young is scuffling a bit. The wild card is Will Levis. What you think of him is intriguing and how he might have slipped through the cracks. But I will say about Bryce Young not being a tough guy, I feel like he better start showing something by the end of his rookie season. This is not 1978 anymore. It doesn't take 3 to 5 years to develop as a quarterback. You at least better show, oh yeah, this is why we drafted him number 1 overall. We have to start seeing those moments because in the free agency era, you just don't have that much time to do it.
No, I completely agree with that. But I think you need at least 3 years to really start to figure out.
3 years is different. Okay.
To figure out somebody, and after that 3rd year, hey, he's not what we expected him to be. Will Levis, he's way more poised in the pocket than I ever imagined him to be. To me, CJ is obviously poised in the pocket. He's just shredding it. But Will Levis, he sits in the midst of pressure like. It's not even a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that's been in there for a while that sits in the pocket as well as Will Levis does. So I think he's gonna be a good player.
You mentioned Kenny, and I'm sorry to bring him up here. I think that is legitimately a concern for him. He is not comfy in close proximity to these 300-pound guys, especially. I mean, nobody wants that inside pressure. But he really seems to be spooked by it a little bit. I don't know. That's what my untrained eye tells me. I'm curious what you think about that. You know what? We'll put a pin in that, though, for a future episode because that's it for my big takeaways this week. Let's get to some quick hitters. It's time to roll out the nickel package. I'm going to hit Shazier with 5 questions I was left wondering about after watching the NFL all weekend, and he's going to fire back with the answers. 5-0, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
All right, first up, should every team get a guy who can run, block, catch, and pass in a pinch like Taysom Hill, who at age 33 is probably having his best year as a pro?
Man, me personally, Taysom Hill, he's an average player to me. I don't see why I feel every team would need a Taysom Hill. Having an emergency backup quarterback, yeah, I can see that, but how does that really benefit your roster? And then there's not a lot of guys in the NFL that can run, block, pass like Taysom Hill. So he's definitely a unicorn when it comes to the sport of football. And it would be cool to have somebody like that on every team. But me personally, I'd rather have a Connor Hayward than a Taysom Hill, on every team, because Connor Hayward, he can fullback, he can also play tight end. How often are you going to go to your third string quarterback? I understand the Dallas, not Dallas. I understand that the Giants go through their quarterbacks a lot. And, the Vikings, sometimes their quarterbacks get hurt. But when you really think about it, you don't really go to your third string quarterback like that unless you have a team. If you have a team, you don't know who your quarterback is going to be, it's good to have a Taysom Hill. But if you're a team that is solidified, you have a $100 million quarterback, I don't see the reason for having a Taysom Hill. He's good for that situation, but I don't think he's going to be good in every situation.
I think maybe that you're taking it too literally about what Taysom Hill specifically does, which is, play a little QB if need be. But I do think you see, and in fact, I think most pro football teams these days, one of the must-have things is a do-it-all guy, the Swiss Army knife type of guy, even on defense.
Yeah,
a lot of teams want that whatever people call it, the chess piece, the queen piece on defense that you can play inside linebacker, drop in coverage and all that kind of stuff. I think Connor Hayward, we're talking about the same thing, right? It's just different skill set. But yes, guys who can do very
a plug it all type of guy. Yeah, but if you're talking about a tight end that can play quarterback, no, I don't. You know what I'm saying? But if you're talking about like a do it all type of guy, yeah, I definitely feel like every team need to have somebody on their team that can make a difference in multiple different ways. One thing that Coach Tomlin loved to say, the more you can do. The more you can do, it gives you more opportunities to play, and it gives the team more opportunities to win. So if you're talking about a Taysom Hill in that instance, yeah. But if you're talking about just if I put Taysom Hill on another team like the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't see where he fits.
Quick question for you as an offshoot here. You watch, everybody's talking about the tush push. I think that Jalen Hurts gets super low with those heavy legs he's got. That's the trick. You watch Micah Parsons on Sunday sort of ride that sea of humanity like a wave over it. You're missing it if you're coming at them over the top. You have to get low with them. Why don't teams direct snap? Go under center to Derrick Henry as a for instance. Is it that hard to take a snap under center? It would seem like, boy, that's even a better bet. If you have a power back, just give him the ball instead of your quarterback.
So the one thing that a lot of teams, when they try to replicate the tush push, the Philly probably practiced on that play so many times before they even brought it out to do it for the first time. Secondly, Jalen Hurts, what a lot of teams do, they rush when it's that 4th and 1 situation. He doesn't rush. He finds a gap. Once he finds that gap, that's when he pushes through. A lot of teams try to rush to that situation and they panic. And that's why a lot of teams get stuck. For the Eagles, he takes his time, finds where the hole is at, and then that's the hole that he goes through, and then they push him through there. When it comes to getting the ball as if you're Derrick Henry, that is something that you have to constantly practice. The cadence that you have to have with the O-line. Also, you have to practice receiving the ball in a completely different manner than you normally receive it. He's used to receiving the ball with his right arm over top of his left arm or his left arm over top of his right. Now you have to actually put your hand in almost like a I don't even know what, like a C motion to receive the ball. And then you also have to very quickly be able to put it into a very safe space so it doesn't get taken. And quarterbacks, they do that every day, all day. They're used to those type of handoffs. And the O-line are used to their cadence. If somebody else comes in there and make up a BS cadence and it sounds different, now people are jumping off sides, and it just, you don't want to add an element to the offense that
I got you. I just want to say, if anybody wants somebody to try it, Dave Dameshek is available to be your Taysom Hill. Okay, Caleb Williams, a lot of people were desperate to have in August. I wonder if these losses that he and SC are taking, obviously largely owed to the defense, are hurting his draft stock. And, based on what I saw on social media, there were a lot of people questioning his comportment because he cried after the loss this past weekend. How say you on Caleb Williams and his draft stock right now?
I don't think Caleb Williams' draft stock is going nowhere. I think he's, playing the best quarterback. He's the best quarterback in college football. His team, Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans, are failing him. If you constantly putting up 45 points a game and you're losing games, that makes absolutely no sense when you're watching football. Like, absolutely. The only sport where you're putting up 45 points and you should be losing is basketball. Like, that's the only sport. Not you should be losing a football game putting up 45 points.
Tell it to the San Jose Sharks. Continue.
But to me, it doesn't bother me that he cried because he's probably tired of losing. I don't think Caleb Williams cares that people are talking mess about him because he's losing. I think he's tired of losing, and he's like, I'm giving literally everything I possibly have to keep us in a fight, and we can't figure out a way to win these games. Like, they just literally played a top 6 team, put 42 points on them, and lost the game. And it's like, as a quarterback, what else are you supposed to do to help this team win? You're beating another team by 21 points in Colorado. They come all the way back and you end up beating them by 8 because of a last second go round, and you had to keep putting up points to compete with them. At quarterback, I understand your job is to put up points, but at one moment you have to be on the field and have to feel, man, it feels good to know that my defense is going to give me a 3 and out, and I can go back out there and do it again. That's not what he's getting. But I don't feel like his draft stock should drop because of it. I think that the only thing that is very questionable with me is Caleb is an improviser, and he's great at it. But I think that's another thing that happened with Bryce Young as well. With them being such great improvisers, that sitting in the pocket can be very flaky sometimes. And in the NFL, Caleb is not going to be able to do all that running around. Like, obviously, Patrick Mahomes has found the art of being able to do it because he knows when to sit in the pocket and he knows when to run around. But I think people are too enamored by all this running around by quarterbacks and throwing it in funky motions. That's why Zach Wilson's got drafted early. That's why I honestly think Bryce got drafted before CJ, because they can do all this other stuff with their legs. But to me, I think what matters most at quarterback is that arm talent, and he has that. But I think that if anything drops his stock is how actively he is in the pocket, because he moves around a lot. And you moving around that much, TJ just going to wait for you to run into him.
First of all, maybe it'll be a relief when he's in the NFL and has a defense that supports him a little bit. And the other thing is, don't the tears indicate he cares deeply? Speaking of that, moving on, George Pickens seems to care deeply, maybe too much so, deleting some of his social media after the game, even in a Steelers win last week. What are George Pickens' Steelers teammates saying to him? Not what Mike Tomlin is doing. He sort of sloughed it off in his weekly press conference, and he said it's a pebble in his shoe. What are the teammates saying to Pickens right now?
So I can imagine guys like Allen Robinson, Deontay, Cam Hayward, they're probably going to go to him like, hey, George, this is a situation where you don't want other people to get involved in what's going on. One thing that Coach Tomlin, and I love him for this, is I know I'm not allowed to cuss, but he say no bitching, right? And I'm sorry, but I had to say it. And what that mean is basically complaining about your problems to people who can't fix them. So that's going on social media, complaining about your problems to people that can't fix it, or, telling other people about your problems who really don't care. And that's people on social media. They either happy you got the problems or they don't care that you got those problems. And so that's the definition of that. And I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to curse, but hey, I had to, that's how he writes it in the script. So I'm just telling you how they say it. And to me, I think Coach Tomlin is going to go to him and he'll be like, hey, George, I'm happy that you care. And all these guys are going to be like, I'm happy that you care. And I'd rather say whoa than sick 'em. I'd rather have somebody that's, man, why you not giving me the ball? Man, I want to get involved. I want to help us win. Than you over here just pouting, salty, and then now I have to be like, hey, George, we need you to turn it on. We don't need no guys like that. So just like Caleb Williams, George Pickens, you can definitely tell they care and they want to be involved. George is just going to have to find another way to let that anger out. And I think his teammates are going to go to him and like, hey, bro, I've been in this situation before. Deontay's been in situations when he's been mad he haven't got the ball. Allen Robinson has been in a bunch of situations when he's been mad he hasn't got the ball. And then Cam has been around a bunch of teammates that have been mad, like Martavius Bryant, AB. He's been around a bunch of guys that's been mad. Le'Veon, who hasn't got the ball. So I think they're going to go talk to him and I know one of them have probably talked to him like, hey, George, this is probably how you have to handle this situation, bro. Like, I understand that you're pissed, but this is how we're going to handle this situation. And bro, I will be surprised if George doesn't have at least 6 catches to 7 catches next week.
Well, you kind of touched on some direct examples that Mike Tomlin can point to within that building, over the last 20 years. Hey, George Pickens, you're uber talented. Whose career and post-football career would you rather have? Antonio Brown's or Hines Ward's? Both guys, borderline Hall of Fame talents, deeply productive guys, icons for all of time. One has a stink on him that he'll have a hard time ever washing off. The other guy gets a back pat and never probably pays for a dinner for the rest of his life in Pittsburgh. That's my answer to George Pickens, and it seems like that'll settle that hash. Meantime, the idea that they were going to, I don't know what anybody wanted them to do. He's in his second year, halfway through the season. His options are limited, everybody. He has nowhere to go. He kind of has to play ball, literally and figuratively. All right, fourth on the nickel package here. Real quick on this one. How did Josh Dobbs do that? He walks in the building and a couple hours later he wins an NFL football game? All this talk about QBing is really hard. What gives?
No, I'm not going to lie. QBing is definitely hard. It's a very hard position. You have 11 guys that are trying to bite your head off every single day. So I'm not trying to say that's not a hard position. The one thing I can say about Josh, and even from knowing him as a friend, even playing him in, FIFA when we played against each other, Josh is somebody that's very dedicated to his job. He's a very smart guy. He's actually an aero scientist, aerospace engineer, so like he's a really smart guy. So he grasps concepts and understands very easily. He's been in multiple different offices, so he understands how route patterns, he understands what the coaches are asking from him. The biggest thing is he just had to communicate with Kevin McConnell and just basically say, hey, these are the plays that I like. Do you have these in your game plan? And then Kevin will basically say to him, these are the plays that we have. Do you know this or do you not know this? And he just, the biggest thing for him is just, it's really hard getting that timing down in place. But I love what Josh Dobbs just said. He said, no matter what you're in, it doesn't, your circumstance doesn't matter. You can't complain about your circumstance. And he said he learned that from Coach T. And that's true. It doesn't matter if you get in with no practice. This is the opportunity that you have. Go out there and make the best of your opportunity because this might be your last one. And there's a reason that Josh got traded because they knew how smart he was. They knew that he can be a really good player. And he went out there, won them that game. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know if Hall would have did the same thing. So Josh has experience at quarterback in the NFL. And he did what he needed to do. And I think just from that game, I wouldn't be surprised if Josh doesn't take the helm on this quarterback position.
Be nice for him. I've never heard a bad word about the guy. Or maybe he could just bounce to a new team every single week and win a game and then move on. Like Kung Fu used to do. All right, fifth and final question. Do players like it when the owners come in? You saw Jim Irsay do it last week after the victory for the Colts. Do players, when the owner guy comes in, he starts dancing and all that stuff in the locker room after the game?
So in my experience, Mr. Rooney, after every single game, would come to each player and be like, hey, Ryan, hey, Vince, hey, Ben, thank you for everything you do for this organization. After win or loss, he'll shake every single player's hand. I just can't see Mr. Rooney coming in there dancing up a storm. That's just not what I'm used to seeing. I'm not used to seeing that. I've seen Mr. Rooney dance with his wife before at a different venue, but I never really seen him, out there really breaking it down with the players. Some owners are more in tune and some more are more involved, but I honestly think most of that's for attention. A lot of owners, in my honest opinion, their names are constantly in the media. Their names are constantly in the news. They're constantly doing interviews. And it's your team. You own it. You can say and do what you want to do with it. But I just don't see how that's a comfortable feeling. Because say if normally when you're an athlete or you're even a friend, when you're dancing with people, it's normally people that you're cool with, that you associate with, that you feel like you're familiar with. Not somebody that if you make a mistake, they're going to cut you in a heartbeat. You know, so I just don't think that a lot of guys, you know, they probably would dance with him and it was a cool moment. But I know a lot of guys are probably like, whoa, this is kind of different. You know what I'm saying? Like, where were you at when we were losing? Where were you at when we were losing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you weren't dancing.
Tell your peers, dance with the old man. It makes him feel happy, and it ensures that you get to stick around. If you turn your nose up at him, you may not get a hat next week.
Nah, you like, if he's in there dancing, like, we're going to keep, you know, enjoying the moment. You're going to keep enjoying the moment, but I just don't, me personally, I'd much rather Mr. Rooney coming in there, shaking my hand and say, hey, Ryan, man, we appreciate everything you do with this organization. I would, you know, if Mr. Rooney wants to dance, I'm cool with that too, because I have a great relationship with him. You know what I'm saying? But I just think it would be kind of, you know, weird, you know, seeing some of the owners come in there and dance with the team.
Wait, multi-billionaire has a big ego? Boy, that seems weird to me. All right, let's stop it there. I thought this was a very successful first go of things here on Gridiron Gut Check. That's it for the inaugural episode. Shazier, tell them what to do.
Hey, so make sure to follow, rate, and review the show on wherever you're listening. Also, check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Peace out, and we'll see you next week.